John, can you just pause because we're not quite live. Give us
okay.
1 minute.
No,
we'll give you the note. Go ahead.
Right, so welcome to this public workshop on LTP progress to date in the budget. John Salmon is going to take us through about half an hour of slides on this. John.
Thank you, Mayor Jamie. Yeah, that very much be between myself, Paul, and Bernard and Sonia may have some input from the finance team. So yeah, the first thing I want to cover off, and thanks to everyone for joining and to the public that's listening this afternoon. Apologies that we did start a little bit later than planned. However, we'll try and get through these slides as quickly as we possibly can. So the first thing I wanted to do was go over a little bit of a story of how we've got to the position that we're at today. So the first of all, it's very much a no frills budget. The budget that we will be sharing in terms of the draft rates movements, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Is based fully on a no frills budget. Simon and governance have set us the mandate to basically review line by line and try and find savings wherever we can. One of the key messages that we had as a staff team was around making sure that we can deliver what we said we're going to. I think we've said it in public and on countless occasions that our budget is going to be based around delivery. One of the next things we're considering is how we report and the outcomes that we give. And as I said earlier on, there was a mandate from the CEO, and I can promise you from a staff perspective, I can hand on heart say that we've challenged each other. We've had multiple internal workshops, conversations, almost line by line budget reviews together. So yeah, it's been certainly a lot of work, but we're in a better position than we felt we were a few weeks ago. That's for sure. We've reviewed in depth the fees and charges that we've put out. We've done a lot of work in terms of basing it on a user pays model, and we've also been looking at other revenue streams that we can bring in as an organisation. And the reason why the last part of the slide was around has been put in bold is because the budget that we've delivered or will be delivering is based on providing the same levels of service and also around the risk that we've got to the organisation for water or infrastructure or anything like that. So we have had levels of service workshops. There'll be a paper coming back to council at the end of this month in terms of hopefully adopting the level of service and KPIs. So moving on, the key challenges we've faced from a budgeting perspective in the organisation. Clearly, number one, especially from a governance perspective, it's been loud and clear to everyone that affordability for our community is of paramount importance. It's the thing we've had a lens over across every single part of the budgeting process, and Simon and our senior leadership team have been focused purely, though not purely, but it's been a massive part of the work we're trying to do. Obviously, a big challenge is around regulation, especially when it comes to some of our rural water supplies. But we have, hopefully, as we alluded to last week, there's maybe some positives coming from that, so that hopefully is less of a challenge moving forward than we currently see it is. One of the big things is obviously uncertainty around legislation. Well, first of all, the reason why we're doing an LTP this year and not last year is around the water reform, around local water done well. We chose to defer the long-term plan because there was a lot of uncertainty around it. What I would say, and later on we'll have a workshop around local water done well, is there's still uncertainty. There's still certain standards that haven't been formalised yet. We've got some information from the water services regulator, but there's certainly still some work to be done in that space to confirm exactly what the requirements are. Clearly, one of the key challenges is around maintaining our current levels of service. We've been given a lot of guidance around the table that there wasn't a lot of want to see our levels of service reduce, but unfortunately, with levels of service maintaining the same, there is costs of doing things. So we've been trying to make sure we find a balance between not dropping any levels of service, but also making it as affordable as we possibly can. Now, we'll get more in-depth a discussion around it in a little while. However, the Buller Holdings dividend payment has decreased. We had it in as 1.3 million in the budget a few weeks ago. However, we've received this as the statement of intent, and it is around 800,000, which has a direct impact on rates. So that's around a $500,000 increase to potentially any rates that we've got. So that's kind of what our key challenges are. So what we had planned to deliver today was the rates movement in terms of what we were looking at for the next 9 years. Unfortunately, at the 11th hour last night, we had a little bit of a technical issue with the modelling that we had. We certainly were in a really confident place yesterday evening. However, we've had a technical issue with our model on Excel, which has meant that we're not able to deliver the rates figures today. However, we will be in a position next Wednesday to deliver the draft rates movements for the community and the governance team as well. So we'll deliver that next week. So apologies, I'm sure people would have been expecting to see the 9 years rates movement. We won't be able to deliver that today, but we have got some slides to showcase why any rates movements are the way they are. What's our key impacts on the 25-26 rates? Obviously, I just mentioned it there. The Buller Holdings dividend, that is I would suggest, and I'm sure the team will agree with me, that this is probably our biggest movement. $500,000 of a direct rates impact looks around about a 3.5–4% rates movement. So that's obviously a big number. And we've tried to do whatever we can internally to counteract that increase. And hopefully next week we're able to be in a position to showcase that. The management fee of Buller Holdings has increased by $100,000. And if I'll stop after this slide to take any questions. But yeah, that's obviously another impact us. The contributing factors for the improved position, we are in an improved position to what we were 6 weeks ago. We've maintained the user pays approach. I think especially our regulatory team done an amazing job. Simon and his team have focused a lot on user pays, which is really good. That's helped increase our revenue. And that was adopted at council in terms of our fees and charges, draft fees and charges last month. We have done a lot of work in our contracting space. We've heard from the community and also around the table around the contractor position that we did have. Simon's given us a mandate to reduce those costs, and hopefully, well, you will see next week that has certainly happened, which is a really good news story, and hopefully we can get some people in the district that brings really good positive things to the community. We've done very much a strategic review of the budget area, including the fees and charges. As I said earlier on, we have been through it line by line. I don't even want to tell you how many hours we've spent doing that, but we've very much we know how important it is, and we're wanting to make sure that we can deliver a budget that we are not only confident in, but we've done our best, which I'm sure we'll be able to see next week. And we're looking at the budgeted operational costs as well, and that's obviously a potential impact on the rates. Any questions on the first 3 slides?
Councillor Reedy.
Yeah, thank you, John, for that, through the chair. Contributing factors, the second bullet point there, or arrow point, reducing contractor costs. My understanding was, and there's an example from Simon and Regulatory, where we're going to replace a contractor with a permanent staff member. So are we talking like for like, basically reducing contractor costs, but replacing them with a staff member, or are we actually looking at contractor costs full stop? And my understanding, and it's been around for a little while, we've actually had staff members leave BDC, permanent staff members, leave BDC, and then contract back at maybe $150 an hour, or whatever, even 200. Now, this was appears to me to be even back then, something that was approved or accepted, one could say, by then management. So I just want some clarification on reducing contractor costs. The next one down, strategic review of budget areas. Basically, when we have a strategy, BDC strategy, and our which is recorded in the long-term plan and the annual plan, and therefore strategic review of budget areas. My understanding is we're looking at the budget areas in terms of how they satisfy the BDC strategic direction, and that has been set in concrete now probably for about the last 6 to 8 years. So if you just can I have some clarification on those two items, please?
Paul?
Thank you, Councillor Reedy. I'll happily take the first point around reducing the contractor costs, and thank you for raising it, Councillor Reedy. So to your first point around taking a contractor out and replacing it with a permanent member of staff, Simon has done some work, as you quite rightly alluded to. I know Anthony, from an infrastructure perspective, has certainly been done something very similar, which hopefully is a really positive story for the contractor costs in general, because that will obviously, of course, reduce the volume based on salaries versus a consultant or a contractor rate is significantly different, especially in an infrastructure environment. But to answer your question, have we done a full review of contractor costs? That's exactly what I meant by that part of the slide. We have. Simon has given us a mandate internally to review all our contractor costs, and that hopefully we can see that when it comes through in the budget next week. So yes is the short answer to your question. In terms of the strategic review, Paul, I'll pass over to you if you would like to answer that one.
Thanks, John. I might ask Sonia, who's been working quite closely on the numbers, to comment on both the contracting costs and the other area around fees and charges. So,
do you want to just introduce Sonia, Paul, for the?
So for the rest of people listening, and so Sonia Burby's our financial accountant, and she's been working in depth on the model and the numbers around the long-term plan. Sonia.
Oh, just before Sonia, sorry, Sonia, if I could just make a comment. Councillor Reedy, the strategic review of the budgets, I think that's a term of phrase rather than an actual strategic review of the budget. And as you say, that's a whole different issue. But I think more it's just a phrase that's been used, Councillor Reedy, rather than actual review of the structure. But and sorry, Sonia, if you go ahead on that.
That's all right. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, about the reducing contractor costs. So what the plan is that we are finding suitable full-time employees to take on roles that are currently occupied by contractors or consultants. So obviously, as we all know, consultants are very expensive beasts. And what we are trying to do is producing the same level of service or better level of service at less cost. The other benefit of having long-term employees, of course, is that we have a lot more continuity, because consultants move from one council to the other, so does contractors. And you lose that continuity and the overview, especially for longer-term projects. And it is really important that we do keep that continuity going for a number of reasons, because it gets very disjointed, especially with long-term projects. And if you have other staff leaving in between, that you need a steady hand somewhere that is going to lead the projects forward. If that comes at a reduced cost, that's even better, and it should be beneficial for the whole of the district. I think what John means with the strategic review is that we actually reviewed the budget in relation to the council strategy. So we know from our strategy documents what it is that we are trying to achieve over the next 5 to 10 years. And what we've done is look at these specific areas and perhaps reorganized a few things that we are actually able to deliver a result and a picture at the year end where we can say, okay, we looked at this particular area and it's costing us that much. Do you want to continue with it? Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you very much. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, John, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I think if you just to finalise that point about the contractor cost, it came across loud and clear from the community and also this table around what they're costing the business. It was a big part of the submission process for the enhanced annual plan last year. A lot of the submissions were reduced contractors, blah blah, etc. etc. So we've certainly taken that on board, and hopefully that pulls through in the numbers that we deliver to you next week. So Sonia, do you want to take the team through this one?
As of today's snapshot, what our rates going forward for the next financial year, that's the first year of the LTP budget, what it would fund. So on your right-hand side, you see the different activities, and it is, the number there is still, because of our technical hiccup at the moment, still not quite 100%, I'd say about 85% there. So this is a requirement of the money that is required to be funded from rates. And when you look at the big 100% pie of what we've got, so it is divided into various portions that relate to our legend on the right-hand side. So as you can see, roads and wastewater, community service and water supplies are obviously the big hitters in the council, but I guess it's with any council, because that's where the majority of money is being spent. And, you know, that is really what a council is about, is supplying those services to the community. And then we are just going down to the smaller items. We are only carrying a very small portion of the airport. Stormwater is not a particular issue for us. And everything else just falls within the normal range of what other councils would do as well. So there is nothing terribly unusual about it. Oh, John has just moved my slide for me. Thank you. So capital expenditure, for the capital expenditure, a similar picture. Again, those numbers need reconfirming by the middle of next week. But this is at the moment the way we are seeing capital expenditure being distributed for the next financial year. And below you can see how the funded rates, how much rates contribute to each activity. So what we saw earlier on, you saw the costs, for example, of governance, and you need the rates to pay for this. So this is basically relating to the previous slide we had, as well as a bit of the capital as well. But the previous one is a combination of both, and this one is just breaking it down into operational and capital.
I think just on this one as well, Sonia, the one of the things the elected members asked for was a breakdown almost like this in the LTP consultation document. So the reason why we're doing it is we've obviously providing this sort of slide. It'll be designed a bit differently from our designer. This will be something that will be in the draft documents.
Absolutely, and there will be more information coming over the next week, because once we get this computer system working again, we can extract a lot more information than we had before, and I think that it's going to be beneficial for everybody. We actually had the thought of giving you a slide that is actually assigning how many cents of rates relate to what activity, but we had to scrap that because unfortunately, because of our technology problems, some of those formulas looked a bit odd this morning. So, but we will catch up with that next week.
Thank you. Do you want to take some questions now, Councillor Reedy?
Two things, if I may, please. I can go back to the first slide that Sonia had up.
Can we go back,
the
John? A couple.
Pie graph.
Otherwise,
anyway, in terms of the pie graph, where your rates go, and we've got the 1%, 3% on that. But it's, for me, it's distorted through the chair. It's distorted in that we have fixed targeted rates, of wastewater and water supplies. So we're actually looking at 36% there in terms of your rates are funded, but yet we have a lot of, if you like, country type residents who don't actually pay these two targeted rates. So for me, it's a bit misleading to say that 22% of someone's rates who live in, I don't know where, but live and they don't take water supplies, or they don't have the wastewater. They organise their own. So is there any way of us being able to, it could be difficult, to differentiate between general rates and targeted rates?
Absolutely, that is something that's coming next week. We actually did have a stab at that, and our slideshow looked a bit different yesterday afternoon than it does this morning, I'm afraid. So we had a few of those things. We can break things up quite easily into targeted rates and into general rates, and we will show you two different pie charts that will give you all that information.
Yeah, we heard that, just for your information, Sonia, and the rest of the team, a lot of the elected members were asking for exactly that, not just the breakdown of what the total rates was. It was around general rates, targeted rates. So next Wednesday you'll have a slide on each. And so that the headline number of whatever the rates movement is, it's not based, it will be a total rates movement, but obviously that depends on each individual circumstance. So we'll break it down specifically for those reasons. So thanks for raising that, Councillor Reedy.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we also need a further breakdown from that pie graph. So I'd like to see a breakdown pie graph and things like the community services and the community facilities. So I don't think the general public realise what services are provided within some of those sectors. So if we could take that 18% and the 3% and give a further breakdown as a pie graph, it give a better understanding about what we're providing for that.
We can. I think I would like to see your suggestion as to what you feel would be something that the public would like to read. Is it, for example, all reserves, or is it broken down to whatever reserve it might be? What is the level of detail you would like to see to make that happen?
I think the main things are, well, the things from the previous consultation people talked to me about it is the libraries, the theatre complexes, it's the recreational facilities, parks and reserves, but then I guess it's an understanding of what else comes under that bracket.
Okay. Yep, sure. Yeah, we can certainly put something together for next week and show you, and see if you're happy with that. And other than that, we can sort it all sorts of different ways, because all of these things that are combining into the activities, they're all got their own individual identity. So we can actually summarize them whichever way you want to see them.
I think another thing, given that's been very topical lately, is where does the communication and engagement budget, where does that come out of? So maybe that could be, one of those breakdowns.
Okay, sure. Yep, no problem. We can certainly look at that. That's no problem at all to do. Councillor
Naylon, you've come off mute.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Reedy beat me to it, because there's nearly, in my workings, there's nearly 25% of the ratepayers don't pay the targeted water or sewage rates. So very much appreciated if we can have our own pie graph, if you like, or a separate one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we took your point on board, Graham. We absolutely will deliver that next week.
Sounds like it's easy to do. Councillor Reedy.
I appreciate time, Mr. Mayor. it seems to me, Sonia, which we're looking at reinventing the wheel. I believe the 2131 LTP and ones prior to that, they used to break it down into what Joe's talking about, even as far as saying these costs, even as far as saying 1 cent or 2 cents of your rates go to animal control. And so I think if you go back to 2131, you'll see that a lot of what Joe's mentioned is already recorded anyway. And I'd expect to see that same, instead of reinventing the wheel, we might be able to improve on it. I can't remember now what's in there. Certainly dog control rings a bell. So we go down to micro level, happy as, if we can maintain that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we can do that once.
Thanks,
Working
Sonia.
again? Yep.
John,
Yeah,
John, can we just do a quick time check? How do you think we're tracking? Because
Yeah,
expecting at 3 o'clock, and I just want to set expectations now. If we want another half an hour, or what are you thinking?
no, I think, look, these major infrastructure capital projects and other reasons for any movements, I think we can cover that off next week, to be honest. I'm comfortable if we want to move on to, because this is essentially capital expenditure and things. We can cover that today if we like. But I think it might be beneficial to do that as one next week, if everyone's happy with that.
But it's fine to run a bit late, but I just want to tell people that we're going to run a bit late. That's all.
I'm just wondering, can we? I'm not sure if these slides are on Diligent. Sorry, no. Can we just put them on there so we can at least prepare ourselves for when we start discussing these? That's all I'm after.
So the slides can definitely be loaded up. Okay. Well, we've got another 5 minutes then. So what you're telling me is we're not going to be far behind time. So
I think we're happy. I'm happy if the team are to cover these next two off next week anyway. Just because we have got quite an in-depth workshop in terms of local water done well, so I don't want to be running too much into that if I'm being
okay.
Just if that's okay.
All right.
Right, so this one here is the capital expenditure of what we're doing, but this is broken down to across infrastructure, and then it includes community facilities, and we've got also broken it down a little bit further in terms of the whole of all of business. Now, what we'll give you next week is we'll give you this operating expenditure, but align numbers to it in terms of dollar figures, so that we can understand exactly what each part of the business cost and what the kind of movements are looking like year by year in terms of that dollar movement. So that's a slide we're happy to share with you next week. So moving on, so as we say, we'll have a much, and apologies again, we will have a much more in-depth discussion around rates movements next week. We've outlined the key challenges we've had this time. Unfortunately, technology sometimes doesn't allow what we want it to, but we will be in a better position a week from now. What I wanted to discuss with you is around the consultation topics. So I think we've discussed this quite a lot recently, and I will bring a council paper back. But the things that we foresee being the main things in terms of what the impact would be on not just the organisation, but the ratepayer in general terms, would be the Westport stormwater and wastewater separation, and also the potential of becoming an LGFA guarantor, and noting the interest rates, the interest decreases, etc. you can get from doing that. So that's what we're proposing from a staff perspective in terms of consultation. So if there's any questions or any thoughts you have before next week on that, then please do share it with me. But I think we have spoke about this stuff at length over the last certainly 2 or 3 months. So one thing I wanted to cover off before we finished was around the consultation. So we had initially planned to go to consultation on the 1st of April and potentially adopting our draft documents at the end of the month. However, what we're planning on doing is doing the consultation alongside local water done well for obvious reasons. And we're going to be going to consultation on the 18th of April for both. So what that means is we're looking to adopt the draft documents on the 16th of April. There will be an extraordinary council meeting booked in the same day as RAC. This gives you a breakdown of what the submission process looks like in terms of how it's going to work, what the dates are. And then the view of the hearings is that they will be on the 20th of May to the 22nd. 23rd will be we'll do all our internal stuff. 26th, the list of speakers with your submission analysis, and then the deliberations on the 4th and the 5th of June, with a view of adopting the document on the 25th of June. So that's kind of in terms of how the consultation looks. So yeah, that was a whirlwind half an hour. I hope we'll certainly, but I guess the lasting remarks would be that we've done a lot of work to get to where we're at now, and I hope that you and the community see that next Wednesday. And again, apologies that the technology didn't quite work the way we foreseen it doing this time yesterday.
Thanks, John. You had a question, Councillor Reid?
Very quickly, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It might have been raised before, but to become a guarantor, if we just go back a couple of LGFA funding guarantor, can we have an explanation as to why BDC have not undertaken that function previously? Why have they not been a guarantor? And just so we've got wrap our heads around that. And the other one is in terms of the water, we mentioned we don't know what's happening with the legislation and the like. And I know a lot of TAs are actually running the possibility, working on the possibility, high possibility, that they might have to redo the long-term plan for 8 years, depending upon what comes out, the materiality, that is, of what comes out of the pending legislation. So I believe we need to build that into any thinking that we're doing at the moment. Happy to be question on that.
I think that's a really good point, Councillor Reid. It does become a challenge for obvious reasons, because the LTP budget that we deliver and you consult on is around like a status quo approach at the moment. Now the reason for that is because we won't have any sort of CCO sorted by the time the LTP is adopted. There is a question and there is legal questions around what that means from an audit perspective, because audit are expecting that the things are in terms of your local water done well, but we know that can't be, and there's pretty much no council in the country that can deliver the numbers based on their local water done well business view, because the water service delivery plan is not adopted by the time the LTP is adopted. Now, there is a part of the Act that states we may not need to do it's still up for legal, the legal questions on whether or not we'll have to do a LTP amendment or not. My view is we probably will, and I have highlighted that in previously as well. But there is, depending on the Act, that could change. But yeah, it does pose potential challenges, especially from an audit perspective. And it has caused a couple of councils in the country to see that. However, from speaking to some of my colleagues, there is a view from a legal point of view that any sort of qualification they've got in their audit should be changed because of the situation that the legislation's in. But like I say, I don't know the in-depth amounts of that. We'll talk to our audit team next week when they're here. But yeah, I certainly see your point.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Just the other question, John, around LGFA.
Yeah, the LGFA. Thanks, Colin. I think that's a really good question, Councillor Reid. I'll happily get the report from Council. I think there was certainly a report went to Council. I think it was a fair few years ago, as to why they didn't do that. We have got a report coming back to the Council meeting at the end of this month. That's sitting with Simon for approval as we speak. That outlines everything. But long story short, I think there's only, and Paul, please tell me if I'm wrong, I think there's only 5 councils in the country that are not a part of that are not an LGFA guarantor at present. So it certainly begs a question as to why Council at the time took that decision. But we will get that information to you. I'll work with the governance team in the next couple of days, and we'll get that information out to all the elected members.
Thanks, John. Who's that? Oh, Bernard, sorry.
Oh, just in general, I think though, we had relatively low borrowing needs, and not going to guarantor, you still had access to 20 million, which was the bulk of our borrowing. So there's a bit of work to become a guarantor, and you're taking on joint and several liability of other councils. And just in general, certainly starting off, a lot of the smaller councils just didn't think it was sort of worth the effort, given that they had access to the bulk of their borrowing through LGFA anyway. But as time goes on and things move on and our debt's getting up, it's now our chance to have a relook at whether or not we want to become part of that CCO effectively.
Thanks, Bernard. Councillor Howard.
I just wanted to ask why that's been picked as a consultation topic that's sort of open for the public to feed in on, because surely that's just a means of delivery. And if it's a consultation topic, surely what we're asking our public is, are they comfortable with the level of debt or the borrowing? Basically, why are we putting that as a consultation to go out to the community? What are we really asking behind that topic?
Yeah, so in the Local Government Act, there's a specific requirement that if we set up, abandon or join a CCO, we need to go through a public consultation process. So that's the trigger for that.
Yeah. I can add a few comments in there if you like around the LGFA. Yeah, Bernard's right. Our debt levels have been around the 20, which is a non-guarantor status, and as over the time period, a lot of councils have moved. The debt levels have increased. So by becoming a guarantor, you get access to a higher level of debt required to run the business effectively at a cheaper rate. So that's the main advantage from it, from joining, and we'll be presenting a paper as at the March council meeting on that. That one of the elected members has raised why we need to have that as a consultation issue. It really comes under the significance and engagement policy. You've just got to make sure you satisfy requirements there, and under the council's significance and engagement policy, and the legislation pretty much requires that you certainly cover it off.
Okay, Councillor Naylor.
Oh, yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in your first slide, John, you had the first thing was affordability. I wonder if we can have some narrative on the metrics that you've been using in determining the level of affordability in our community for next week. And the other thing was the movement in employee expenses, if we can have an outline of that for next week.
Sorry, I was just writing it down, Councillor Nealon. Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, if that's it for the budget one, John, you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy with that if everyone else is.
We'll be revisiting that next week. So, okay, we'll draw this one to a close. Thank you. And we are running a little bit late for the three waters, local water done well discussion. So I think we need to reset the link, do we? Yep. What about those on Zoom? Do they stay on? Or? Okay. Yep. So those on Zoom will need to join on the new link for the local water done well workshop. And